Most perennials bloom for 3 weeks and spend the next 5 months just taking up space in your yard. 3 weeks of color, and then nothing. That is not a garden. That is an expensive disappointment. These 15 perennials bloom from late spring all the way to the first killing frost, and at least 10 of them your neighbors have never once planted. Number 8 on this list attracts more hummingbirds per square foot than almost anything else you can put in the ground, and most American gardeners have never even heard its name. Subscribe to Everyday Gardening right now. Every week, this channel delivers the exact information that saves you money at the nursery, saves you time in the yard, and makes sure the solutions find you. You will not have to go searching for them. The next video on this channel is something every gardener in this country needs to see before they buy a single plant this season. Subscribe so it lands in your feed the moment it goes live. Number 1 is Catmint. Most American gardeners underplant this one badly, and that is a genuine shame, because nothing gives you more color for less work across more months than a well-placed catmint border. The flowers are a soft lavender blue, and when a full planting hits its stride in late May, it looks like a purple cloud sitting right at ground level. That bloom does not stop. Catmint runs from late May through October in most U.S. gardens, and the secret to keeping it going that long is one clean cutback, right down by a third, right after that first big June flush. Pull out your shears, cut it back hard, and within 3 to 4 weeks it returns fuller and more loaded with color than the first time. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, which means whether you are gardening in northern Minnesota or the mid-Atlantic states, this plant was built for your climate. Put it along pathways, drape it over the front edge of a border, let it spill down a slope. It spreads beautifully without ever becoming the kind of plant that takes over. Every bee in your zip code will find it. From May straight through frost, there's almost always something working those flowers, and the garden feels alive because of it. Number 2 is Echinacea, and before you decide you already know everything about this one, stop and listen, because the Echinacea your grandmother grew, that single purple cone standing stiffly in the back border, is not what is available to American gardeners right now. Plant breeders have completely transformed this plant over the past decade, and most people are still buying the old version. Today's Echinacea comes in salmon, deep red, golden yellow, creamy white, and bicolors that look like they belong on a painter's canvas. Varieties like Sunseeker Salmon and Cheyenne Spirit are showing up at nurseries across the country right now, and they perform reliably in zones 3 through 9. Coast-to-coast adaptability that almost no other perennial can match. The bloom window runs from early summer clear through fall, and when the flowers finally fade, do not cut those seed heads down. Leave them standing straight through winter, because goldfinches and chickadees depend on them when the ground is frozen solid and every other food source has disappeared. No native perennial in this country attracts more species of pollinators per square foot than Echinacea at peak bloom. Southern gardeners in zones 7 through 9. Choose heat-tolerant varieties and give your plants some afternoon shade during the hottest months. That single adjustment makes the difference between a plant that thrives and one that burns out before Labor Day. Number 3 is Black-Eyed Susan. And the reason it earns a place on this list is not just because it is beautiful. It is because the new varieties have finally solved the one problem that frustrated American gardeners with this plant for years. The old types developed leaf spot by midsummer and looked ragged and worn right when you needed them performing at their best. Varieties like American Gold Rush and Little Gold Star are disease-resistant, stay clean all season long, and push out rich golden yellow flowers with deep chocolate brown centers from late June to the first hard frost. That is one of the longest natural bloom windows of any perennial available to U.S. gardeners. Full stop. Planted in the middle of a border, mass it along a fence line, let it naturalize in a meadow area. Black-Eyed Susan handles every one of those situations without complaint across zones 3 through 9. And when September comes and monarch butterflies begin moving south toward Mexico, they stop at Rudbeckia specifically. A yard full of these in late summer is a legitimate way station on one of the most extraordinary migrations on this planet. Number 4 is hardy geranium. And this is a plant that confuses more American gardeners than almost anything else in the perennial world. When most people hear the word geranium, they picture that red annual sitting in a window box that gets thrown out every October. That plant and this plant share a name and almost nothing else. Hardy geranium, the true cranesbill, is a tough, spreading, long-blooming perennial that returns reliably year after year in zones 4 through 8. The variety called Rozanne is the one to find at your nursery. Rozanne produces vivid blue-violet flowers that bloom longer than any other hardy geranium variety on the U.S. market, running from April through September with a light trim after the first big flush in early summer. Full sun, partial shade, it handles both without complaint. It spreads into a soft ground-covering mound under roses, along shaded borders, and fills the gaps in a planting scheme that nothing else closes as gracefully. Small native bees and hoverflies that cannot access larger, deeper flowers find hardy geranium wide open and easy to work, and they return to it all season long. Pacific Northwest and New England gardeners especially. This plant performs at its absolute best in your cooler, moister growing conditions. Number 5 is Penstemon, and the hummingbirds have known about this plant for centuries. American gardeners are only now catching up with what those birds figured out a long time ago. Penstemon is native to North America. It evolved here. It belongs here. And there are species and varieties adapted to nearly every single U.S. region, from dry, rocky mountain slopes to humid southeastern gardens to cold northern borders in zones 3 and 4. The tubular flowers come in vivid scarlet, rich purple, deep pink, and soft lavender, depending on which variety you choose. And they bloom from late spring through midsummer with certain varieties, continuing into fall. Plant 3 or more together in a sunny, well-drained spot, and from Memorial Day onward, ruby-throated hummingbirds in the east and broad-tailed hummingbirds in the west will find them before you have even finished watering. The single most critical thing to know about Penstemon, and the exact reason most gardeners lose it in the first winter, is this. Do not prune it until late spring. Those old stems protect the crown from freeze damage through the cold months, and cutting them back in the fall is the number one reason this plant fails to return in zones 4, 5, and 6. Leave them standing. The plant knows what it is doing. Number 6 is Perennial Salvia. And this is a plant that solved the dead midsummer garden problem that drives American gardeners absolutely crazy every July. Everything looks spent. The spring bloomers are long finished, and the fall plants have not started yet. Perennial Salvia fills that gap with the most dramatic color your yard has probably ever seen. Deep violet, cobalt blue, rich burgundy red. These are colors that hold their intensity through full summer heat when every pastel in your border has already washed out and gone pale. Hardy in zones 4 through 9, Salvia blooms strong from late spring through fall, and the secret to keeping it producing all season is consistent deadheading. Cut spent flower spikes back to the next set of leaves, and new stems emerge within 2 weeks. Neglect that one task, and the plant shifts its energy into seed production, and the show slows down considerably. Southern gardeners in zones 7 through 9. The varieties Amistad and Black and Blue handle your heat and humidity better than anything else on the market right now. Plant salvia in front of ornamental grasses or alongside golden black-eyed Susans, and the color contrast stops people in their tracks. Number 7 is Heuchera, known as coral bells, and this is the only plant on this entire list that earns its place in your garden even on the days it is not blooming. The flowers are delicate wands of coral, pink, or white that rise above the foliage from late spring through midsummer, and hummingbirds visit them regularly. But the real performance is the foliage. Deep burgundy, burnt caramel, lime green, silver. Colors that hold from March all the way through December in most U.S. climates. Zones 4 through 9. And it genuinely thrives in shade, which makes it one of the most valuable perennials you can plant under trees or along the north side of a structure where almost nothing else will grow with any color or visual interest. Gardeners in zones 4 through 6 pay attention to this one specific issue. Heuchera heaves out of the soil over winter as the ground freezes and thaws repeatedly. Check your plants in early spring. Press the crowns firmly back down into the soil and add a light layer of mulch around the base. That one simple habit keeps your Heuchera thriving for years. This channel has been committed to giving American gardeners the real information they need to stop wasting money and start growing gardens that actually perform. If you have not subscribed to Garden Roots yet, do it right now. You have already seen what this channel delivers in the first 7 plants alone. And the most uncommon, most surprising plants on this list are still coming. Which of these first 7 plants do you already have grow in your yard? And which one are you hearing about for the very first time? Drop it in the comments, because the answers from gardeners across different U.S. zones genuinely help everyone watching this video know what performs in a climate like theirs. Number 8 is Agastache, and this is the plant that hummingbirds find before you have even finished planting it. Push a few Agastache into ground on a Saturday morning, and by Sunday afternoon, something with wings will have already located it. That is not an exaggeration. That is what happens in yards across this country every single summer when this plant hits its bloom stride. Agastache, commonly called Hyssop, blooms from midsummer through hard frost, which makes it one of the strongest late-season performers on this entire list. When everything else in your border is starting to wind down in August and September, Agastache is just hitting its peak. The new summer-long series brings colors to this plant that did not exist 5 years ago. Vivid coral, deep magenta, soft peach, gentle lilac. And every single one of those colors draws pollinators like nothing else in a late-season garden can. Hardy in zones 5 through 10 depending on the variety, and in zones 5 and 6 where winters push its hardiness limit, many gardeners simply grow in containers and get a full season of extraordinary color without any winter concern. The one thing Agastache demands above everything else is sharp drainage. Planted in amended, gritty soil with excellent water movement, and it thrives. Planted in heavy clay that holds moisture through winter, and it rots at the crown even inside its hardiness zone. Get the drainage right, and this plant rewards you with months of color and more pollinator activity per square foot than almost anything else on this list. Southwest and southern gardeners in zone 7 through 10. Agastache was practically engineered for your heat and your dry conditions. It does not just survive your summers. It flourishes through them. Number 9 is Scabiosa, the pincushion flower, and this one looks so delicate and refined sitting in the border that most people assume it must be difficult and fussy. It is neither. Scabiosa is tougher than it has any right to look, and it blooms from June through late August with consistent deadheading, pushing some varieties clear into October. The flowers are soft lavender blue, clean white, and deep burgundy red. Colors that carry the feeling of a wildflower meadow even in the most structured formal border. Hardy in zones 3 through 7, with cold hardiness that surprises most gardeners given how refined and delicate the plant appears. Put it in the front to middle of a border where those long, slender stems can move naturally in a breeze, and cut them regularly for the house, because Scabiosa makes one of the best and longest-lasting cut flowers of any perennial on this list. One mature, established plant can produce over 2,000 seeds in a single season. Deadhead consistently if you want to manage the spread, or let it go and allow it to naturalize across an area with a wildflower quality that looks entirely intentional. Painted lady and swallowtail butterflies are particularly drawn to Scabiosa in peak summer bloom. In the right setting, it functions as a butterfly landing pad from June straight through the end of summer. Number 10 is Amsonia, called Blue Star, and this is a Native American perennial that gives you 2 completely separate, completely spectacular performances in a single growing season, and the vast majority of American gardeners have never once seen it growing in a yard. The first performance happens in late April and May, when the star-shaped powder blue flowers open above clean, willowy foliage. That soft blue is a color almost nothing else in the spring garden produces. Not a purple, not a violet, but a true, clear powder blue that reads beautifully from across the yard. Then the flowers finish. The foliage stays attractive and full all summer long. And in October, something remarkable happens. The entire plant turns a brilliant golden yellow that rivals the fall color of ornamental trees that cost 10 times as much. 2 shows for the price of 1 plant, across zones 3 through 9. Cut Amsonia back by a third in late June to keep it compact and encourage denser, more spectacular fall color. Left unpruned, it tends to get floppy through the middle of the season, and the autumn display loses some of its impact. Gardeners in the southeast and mid-Atlantic especially, Amsonia tabernamontana is native to your specific region and will establish faster and root deeper than any imported variety. Native bees that overwinter in hollow stems use the dried stalks of Amsonia as nesting habitat through the cold months, which is one more reason to leave some standing after the season ends. If you are watching this and you have not subscribed to Everyday Gardening yet, think about this for a moment. You just learned about Agastache, Scabiosa, and Amsonia in the last few minutes, 3 plants that most gardeners spend years never discovering. This channel puts that kind of content out every single week. Subscribe right now and share this video with someone whose garden needs exactly what this list delivers. Number 11 is Baptisia, known as false indigo, and this is a perennial that looks like it belongs in a botanic garden display and costs almost nothing to maintain once it settles into your yard. The flower spikes are deep violet blue. Some varieties produce soft yellow or creamy white, rising dramatically above silvery blue-green foliage in mid-spring, and the visual impact when a mature clump is in full bloom stops people in their tracks. After the flowers finish, decorative seed pods develop that rattle in the wind and add structure to the border all the way through October. Hardy in zones 3 through 9 with drought tolerance once established, that is frankly extraordinary. Baptisia develops a deep, searching taproot that anchors it against drought conditions that kill everything planted around it. That same taproot is why you need to plant it exactly where you want it permanently. Transplanting Baptisia after its second year in the ground is nearly impossible without losing the plant entirely. Choose your spot, plant it there, and leave it alone. It will reward that patience by growing into a larger, more beautiful, more structurally impressive clump every single year for decades. Wild indigo buntings and several species of native bees depend on Baptisia specifically within U.S. ecosystems. It is a keystone plant in ways that go well beyond its considerable beauty. Number 12 is Clematis, the queen of the climbing garden, and most American gardeners are using barely a fraction of what this plant is actually capable of delivering. The standard picture is a purple clematis on a mailbox post, and while there's nothing wrong with that, it represents one narrow application of a plant with one of the broadest design ranges of any perennial in the country. Deep purple, rich burgundy, soft pink, clean white, bicolors with contrasting centers. The color range across clematis varieties is broader than almost anything else on this list. Hardy in zones 4 through 9 and blooming from late spring through early fall, depending on the variety. The real strategy for extending clematis color across the entire season is choosing 3 different varieties with staggered bloom times. An early blooming variety, a midsummer variety, and a late blooming variety planted together on the same structure gives you continuous flower color from May through September on a single trellis. Grow it up an arbor, across a fence, through an established shrub, over an old tree stump. Anywhere a vertical structure exists, Clematis transforms it. The one rule that matters most, and the one that saved the plant's life in northern gardens: plant it with its head in full sun, and its roots shaded and cool. Mulch the base heavily. Plant a low ground cover around the crown. Keep those roots from baking in summer heat, and Clematis will perform reliably for you year after year. Number 13 is Crocosmia, and this is the most visually dramatic late summer perennial on this entire list. And the fact that most American gardeners have never planted it is one of the great missed opportunities in U.S. home gardening. When Crocosmia hits full bloom in July and August, the arching stems loaded with fiery orange-red flowers look like living flames moving through the border. There is genuinely nothing else in the summer garden that produces that specific quality of heat and drama. Some varieties come in golden yellow and deep scarlet, but it is that vivid orange-red that makes people stop their cars when they see it growing in a yard. Hardy in zones 5 through 9, and the key to reliable return performance in zones 5 and 6 is straightforward. Mulch the corms heavily in November with a 4-inch layer of shredded leaves over the entire planting area. That insulation layer gives them exactly what they need to survive the freeze-thaw cycles of northern winters and come back strong every spring. Plant Crocosmia in front of ornamental grasses where those arching stems can be appreciated in full, or mass it in a cutting garden where the stems make extraordinary long-lasting arrangements. Hummingbirds are drawn irresistibly to the tubular orange flowers from July onward. Plant this near a window you look out of regularly, and you will have a front row seat to daily hummingbird visits through the heart of summer. Number 14 is Chelone, the turtlehead, and this is a Native American perennial with a flower, so genuinely unusual that people stop in the middle of the garden tour and ask what it is every single time without exception. The hooded pink flowers genuinely resemble a turtle's open mouth, not in a vague, you have to squint kind of way, but in a way that is immediately obvious the moment you see the plant in bloom. Rich pink to deep rose pink, blooming from August through October, which makes Chelone one of the latest blooming native perennials available to American gardeners anywhere in the country. Hardy in zones 3 through 8. The place Chelone belongs is anywhere consistently moist. Rain gardens, low spots along a fence line, the edge of a stream or pond, part shade borders where the soil stays damp and late season color is the hardest thing in the world to find. If your yard has a low wet area where other plants drown and nothing seems to thrive, Chelone will treat that exact problem spot like paradise. Bumblebees are the primary pollinator of this plant. The flower is specifically shaped to accommodate their size and weight, and in late summer when bumblebee colonies reach their peak population, a stand of Chelone in full bloom is one of the most ecologically active and visually alive spots in any American yard. Out of everything on this list so far, Agastache, Amsonia, Baptisia, Crocosmia, Chelone, which one genuinely surprised you the most? Leave that in the comments right now, because gardeners in your zone are reading those answers and making planting decisions based on exactly what you share. Number 15 is Veronicastrum, known as Culver's root, and the fact that most American gardeners cannot name this plant is one of the most significant missed opportunities in U.S. perennial gardening today. Walk through any serious botanical garden from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic in July, and you will find it. Tall, architectural, absolutely commanding in the back of a border. White or soft lavender cantilever-style flower spikes rising 4 to 6 feet straight up, with a structural presence that nothing else in the summer garden replicates. This is not a delicate plant. This is not a filler plant. Veronicastrum is a statement, and once you place it correctly in a yard, it becomes a plant every visitor asks about without fail. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, blooming from July through September, and documented as a nectar source for over 100 species of native bees and butterflies across U.S. ecosystems. In the native plant world, ecologists classify it as a keystone species for mid-Atlantic and Midwestern landscapes, meaning entire communities of insects and birds organize part of their seasonal activity around its presence. Planted at the back of a border or in the center of an island bed, where that height can be fully appreciated. Pair it with Echinacea in front and ornamental grasses alongside, and the combination looks like something a professional designer charged thousands of dollars to put together. Established clumps spread slowly and steadily over 3 to 4 years into impressive self-supporting columns that need no staking despite that considerable height. The stems are naturally strong and hold themselves upright through summer storms that flatten lesser plant around them. Give it room from beginning. Leave it alone, and Veronicastrum will become the most talked about plant in your yard within 2 full growing seasons. That is all 15. Catmint to Veronicastrum. 15 perennials that do not quit on you in July. Do not leave your yard looking bare and spend through August and September, and do not require you to keep writing checks at the nursery every single spring just to maintain some color. These plants come back. They bloom long. They feed the bees, the butterflies, and the hummingbirds that make a garden feel genuinely alive rather than just decorated. The single most common mistake American gardeners make with long-blooming perennials is treating them all the same at the end of the season. They cut everything back hard in October, rake it clean, and wonder why half the garden underperforms or fails to return the following spring. The truth is this. Some of these plants, Penstemon, Agastache, Amsonia, need their stems left standing through winter. Those stems protect the crown, shelter beneficial insects, and in some cases provide critical overwintering habitat for native bees that pollinate your entire garden the following year. Cutting back at the wrong time does not just harm that individual plant, it removes habitat that supports the whole system. The second mistake is buying one of everything. A single catmint plant does not create that purple cloud effect. 3 plants do. A single Crocosmia does not stop traffic. A mass of 9 to 12 corms does. These plants perform at their best when you plant generously, and the gardeners who understand that are the ones whose yards look like intentional, designed landscapes rather than scattered collections of single specimens. Every single one of these plants is available to American gardeners right now through local nurseries or reputable mail-order sources that ship directly to your zone. If this list gave you real, usable information, and you know it did, subscribe to Garden Roots right now. Not because this channel asked you to, but because what just happened in this video happens here every single week. Next week on Garden Roots. The 10 most common mistakes American gardeners make when planting perennials. And number 3 on that list is something almost every single person watching this video right now does without realizing it is slowly killing their plants. That video goes live this week. If you are not subscribed, it will not find you. Hit that button right now so it lands directly in your feed the moment it publishes. Before you go, and this is a genuine question worth thinking about, out of all 15 plants on this list, which one are you absolutely certain belongs in your yard this season? And which one are you still not sure about, and why? Drop both answers in the comments below. Because somewhere in this comment section, a gardener in your exact zone, dealing with your exact soil conditions and your exact climate, is reading what you write. And your real-world experience is worth more to them than any nursery tag or gardening catalog description ever will be.